I don't think that it's going to be real estate that's going to be the thing that's going to fall out this time.
I didn't want to stress about money or worry about whether or not bills were going to be getting paid. Family didn't want anything to do with me. Burnt every bridge I had absolutely nothing, hit rock bottom. Experience is the best teacher.
Welcome to the Invest This Podcast. I'm your host, Scott Bauer. I've been a real estate investor here in Phoenix for over 12 years, doing everything from wholesaling to fix and flips and apartment syndications. But the reason I started this podcast is because I believe that investing is about more than the money. Whether that's how to get closer to your family, to become a better leader, or to be more intentional with your health, I'm always trying to improve. My goal for this episode is that you get one thing that you can immediately invest in your life or business to get at least 1% better. So happy that you're here. Now let's get into it. So welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Invest This Podcast. Of course, I am your host, Scott Bauer, and today I got my buddy, JR Piper, here with me. JR has been through the gamut of real estate and other investments as well. I mean, he's been everyone from a real estate agent up to the investor that we know, wholesaling, fix and flipping, buying commercial buildings, buying, hard money lending. I mean, been across the board. And so he's going to give a lot of data and info for you today. JR, why don't you give the listeners a little bit more about your background, kind of give us a short snippet of how you got to where you are today.
Sure. So backstory, I was born and raised in Phoenix. I was born into a lower middle class family. My parents didn't have a lot. They worked really hard for what they did have. And money was always a stressful topic in my household growing up. And so I remember from a very young age being, very clear on the fact that when I got older, I was not going to live the same way. I didn't want to stress about money or worry about whether or not bills were going to be getting paid. I saw my dad, who did auto body work for 50 plus years now, breaking his back in the heat, doing manual labor on cars, not making much money. And I knew that I was not going to live that way. I wanted to figure out a way to work smarter, not harder, and essentially become very wealthy at a fairly young age so that I didn't ever have to worry about money again. I got into a lot of trouble when I was a teenager, started using drugs at a young age, became addicted to drugs. I've always been somewhat entrepreneurial minded, so I learned when I first started using drugs that drugs were very expensive. So if I sold drugs, I not only could make some money, but I got all my drugs for free. That worked out great for a few years until I became my own best customer, and it went down a really dark path. By 21, I was homeless. I was addicted to heroin, completely destroyed my life. Family didn't want anything to do with me. Burnt every bridge I had absolutely nothing, hit rock bottom, was living in my car for a while. And I got clean when I was 22 years old, got my life together. Again, first instinct when I got clean, and I completely changed my life through a recovery program, but I had an internal and external transformation. Like everything in my life changed. And then I started a pool servicing business, did that for a few years, built it up, sold that business, went and worked for a corporate company for a few years, realized I didn't want to work for other people. I had an opportunity to get into real estate working for some guys that were heavy hitters at the trustee sales, worked for them for a few years, got my real estate license, and the rest is history. Started investing in real estate myself when I was, I was in 2013. I bought my first rental property. And since then, I've continued to acquire assets and do different things within the industry. And it's just grown and evolved from there.
Dude, I remember, thank you for sharing that. I think it's really powerful for people to see kind of that progression. But JR and I met at a mastermind that we were part of 10 years ago.
Yep.
I mean, it's been 10 years ago. And he actually told me that story when we were sitting in a hot tub, just enjoying hanging out, just him and I in the hot tub one night. And he brings a story on. I'm just blown away because I think it's really, really important that everybody understand how hard that is, right? And seeing that anything is possible. If you are listening to this now and that's something that you're struggling with now, you're going to get to know JR a lot better in this podcast. And it's spectacular, man. I mean, it really is. I'm really proud of you for doing that. I know you should be proud of yourself, right? It's not about other people being proud of you. I know that you are proud of yourself and you've created a life for you and your family that is, amazing. So thank you for sharing all that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
So let's talk about a little bit more about the progression. So, you started investing in real estate in 2013. You were licensed at that point too, right? So you started selling real estate before that or after that?
So in 2011, I was working a corporate job, and I've got two friends that I grew up with. I know them really well, and they were both very involved at the trustee sales. They were buying multiple homes per day. Some of them they were selling, some they were keeping as rentals. But one of those friends specifically was buying. He was accumulating a rental portfolio of houses, and he didn't want to deal with the day-to-day stuff with the houses because he had an internet marketing business to run. So he asked me if I would want to oversee the construction and the property management on his projects. And I thought it would be a cool thing to do as a side hustle from my full-time job. And I also had always been interested in getting into real estate. So it was a great way to learn. So I agreed to do it. I was getting paid next to nothing, but to me, it was more of an opportunity to just learn a new skill set and be involved with people that I thought I could learn a lot from. And I think there's not enough of that today. It's like everybody wants to, start out and be a millionaire on day two. And it's like, it just doesn't work like that. Everything takes time, and you have to put in the reps to really get somewhere where you even have just the base of knowledge to make anything happen in any industry that you want to, excel in. So I started working for these guys almost for free. And what I always tell people is if I go back and do it again, I do it for free, because I didn't know this at the time, but I learned more in a year of working for them just by the proximity to them, seeing how they analyzed deals and made investments and negotiated. I learned more in a year than I would have learned on my own in a decade doing it myself. And that was so valuable. It was invaluable for me. And so a year working for those guys, I went and got licensed. I started representing them as their agent, buying MLS deals and selling homes. And then I saw what they were doing, and I was pretty broke at the time. So as soon as I saved up enough for a down payment on a property of my own, I bought my first rental in 2013 with their guidance. And then it was like I saved up and bought another one, and then another one. And then I started doing my own deals, wholesale deals and fix and flips. And it's just kind of grown from there. And those two guys I'm still really good friends with. We're business partners today. I own some bigger commercial properties with them, and we still hang out all the time. But yeah, it was like that relationship was really, really valuable for me in the beginning, just to learn the business.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, people want to get in and just have it all handed to them on day two. Mm-hmm. Really, I mean, I think that's a generational thing. I think that's a social media, TikTok thing, which is actually pretty scary. You have young kids that this is the world they're going to grow up in, right? And not understanding what really hard work is. But also, to your point, the relationships, everybody hears about that. Like I remember when I first got into real estate as well, everyone said, you got to build your network, build your relationships up. And I was like, yeah, but how is that going to make me any money? And now today, that's the main way that you make money, right? Mm-hmm. Is relationships that you have with everybody involved. And so the fact that you're still friends with those guys today also means a lot, because that means that you were both, nobody screwed the other person over, right? It was a good relationship. It was something that was beneficial for both of you, and ultimately that taught you a ton.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny because sometimes I'll tell that story and people are like, oh, you're so lucky you had mentors like right out the gate. And I will admit, I was very, very fortunate. I was in the right place at the right time to be offered that opportunity. But let there be no mistake, these guys were not doing me any favors. They were not easy on me. They were more tough on me because we were friends. Like, they didn't let anything slide. I remember having very, very difficult, uncomfortable conversations with them as my boss, essentially, when I screwed up. And it wasn't like, we're friends, so we're going to let you in on this thing. They had very high expectations for me and what I needed to deliver to be a part of what they were doing. And so it was a mutually beneficial exchange and relationship at that time, right? Yeah, the friendship, we had to have a very clear boundary between the friendship and the business relationship, which early on for me, that was really difficult because there were times when like I would screw up and they would be tough on me, and I was like, hey, we're friends. Like, can we let this go? And it was like, no, dude, this is business. You lose me money, we're going to have a conversation about it. They were not,
this is a problem.
They were hard on me, to be honest with you. But I learned a lot of valuable lessons from that about business, about friendship, about life, and how things work in the real world. And there's an entitlement issue, I think, with a lot of young people today that's really unappealing. I've tried to hire people, I'm sure you have too, and I've had kids sit in the interview and say like, well, I want to partner with you in this business. And I'm like, dude, I've been doing this 10 years. Like, you bring nothing to the table. Why would you become a partner? Like, just is a stupid thing to say. You know, you have to have something of value to offer to partner with someone at that level. So what I was bringing to the table in this specific scenario was the work and effort. I was intelligent enough and reliable enough to do the things responsibly that they really didn't want to do or didn't have time to do. And I did them well. You know, and I was a fast learner, and I was a good talker, and I was good at negotiating. And what they were providing to me was knowledge and experience. They were giving me experience that I would have had a really hard time getting on my own, because I wouldn't have been doing nearly the volume of deals that they were doing. So again, by that proximity, I was learning more than I could have imagined.
Dude, 100%.
You know?
100. And also, like, the fact you got to go do it, right? A lot of people think you can just read a book and then know what you're doing. You got to go do it.
Experience is the best teacher.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. So that was 2013. We basically run through 2013 all the way to 2020, right? We have a really good run in the wholesale business. We have a lot of uplift. Yep. Right at that point here in Phoenix, for all of you listening, not here in Phoenix, we had got out of the Great Recession, really, that happened in 2008, where the bottom really fell out in 2008, and from 2008 until 2012 or so, it was pretty rough. But from 2012 up all the way through 2020, it was nothing but growth. I mean, there was tons of opportunities. That's when I got into the business, and same time, 2013 is when I got in the business as well. So same time, we saw a massive run, right? 2020 happens. Now 2020 happens and we hit COVID. What did you think about COVID?
You're right. We had an amazing run up those 7 or 10 years. When COVID hit, I thought the world was going to melt. Like, I literally I went to the bank and I was drawing down my line of credit to zero and just putting the money in I was stacking cash and like figuring it, because I thought everything was going to fall apart. I started selling properties. I was like, in hindsight, I panicked a little, and I should have probably stayed more calm. I think it's smart to pull together as much cash as you can, because if there's going to be a major crisis, it's good to be loaded up on capital, but there's going to be opportunity. I pulled things back. I probably should have continued buying. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20.
Right.
I don't think anyone could have predicted that there was going to be this like hockey stick increase in values like after COVID. I think everyone thought that the world was about to end.
Dude.
It's a very weird time, you know, but I think you go through things like that, and then you learn how to deal with it better the next time around, you know. But I think the most important thing is just kind of keeping the human emotion element out of it, being as rational as possible, and just staying objective and pragmatic, anything to do with business or money.
Dude, it was like such a crazy time because you're right. We had this hockey stick effect, right? And in all reality, like, I should have refinanced everything at 2% interest for 30 years. But at the time, I was like, no, that doesn't make sense. Let's sell it, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. And that happened. Now we're kind of still feeling the effects of that, right? So what do you think has happened because of what happened during that COVID time and where we're at today? I mean, where do you feel like we're at from a real estate business standpoint?
I don't know that it has as much to do with COVID specifically, but I think where the market's at right now, I think it's unlike any other market cycle that we've seen. It's super weird. Like, values are high. They haven't really dropped much. In 2022, when the Fed raised interest rates, we saw a correction and the market kind of flattened out a bit and slowed things down, but nothing collapsed, right? And people have been talking about there's going to be a crash. Like, for many years now, there's going to be a crash, because historically, every 10 or so years, there's a new market cycle. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so I think I think that we're seeing a lot of people, homeowners, who are not selling their houses because they're locked into 3% debt, and home values are double what they were when they bought, and interest rates are double or more than their current mortgage. So if they sell just to make a lateral move to a similar home, they're going to pay more and have a higher mortgage payment. So for a lot of people, it just doesn't make any sense to sell.
Yep.
And so there's less demand, but there's no supply. So it's like we're really not seeing, I think, that shift that everyone was expecting. And I don't know what would cause some massive drop in prices. You'd have to have a significant increase in supply in order to, you know what I'm saying?
100%.
In order for there to be really a drop in values. And I just don't know where that would come from. I don't see it happening
I mean, depending on who you're asking, right? They're saying we're 4 to 5 million units short across the U.S. for houses that are needed just for the current demand that we have, right? And so you'd have to make up a lot of traction. You have to have a ton of houses come on the market, which just isn't going to happen because of what you just talked about. That's why there isn't a crash. It's why it's actually been relatively boring, so to speak, over the last 12 months, in my opinion. Like, it's just been kind of boring. I kind of like it when there is an extreme hockey stick up or even a hockey stick down, right? We have the bottom fall out. Great. Now I can do something, there's something to play with.
Right.
But I don't think that it's going to be real estate that's going to be the thing that's going to fall out this time. We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but I think what's happening is the monetary system, the U.S. dollar, could be something that's going to crash, right? Because what is it, 75%? It's lost 75% of the value or 97% of the value over the last, the value of the U.S. dollar has just got drained. We're seeing it now with the way that inflation is for people just to afford groceries to put on the table or to afford gas to put in their car, whatever, right? It's so expensive for people to live. And also, look at how expensive the house prices are, to your point earlier as well, right? Like, they've doubled or tripled in some areas for people for the same exact house that they bought 20 years ago, right? And it's like, how does that make any sense? Well, it's because the dollars got so devalued. And so what I'm doing is trying to figure out what is the next move that is going to be really impactful into the future, right? And like I said, we kind of talked about this earlier off camera, but I think it's on the crypto side. I think AI is going to take over more than it ever has before because that's the next evolution of our industrial revolution. That's what's happening in the world. That's how people are evolving. I mean, to think about that, we have Elon Musk, who has built a car that you drive, that you can drive itself, right? He's creating the Neuralink idea where he's plugging basically the human brain into a computer. These are all mind-blowing ideas. I saw a Tesla truck when I was coming home from the gym today, and it was wrapped in white. And I turned the corner and I looked at it in my rear view mirror, and it doesn't even look like, it looks like a spaceship, right? Yeah. It's the ugliest truck in the world. I don't like it, right? But it's like, if you would have asked me 20 years ago if that's what I think the future would look like, I'd be like, you're crazy, right? So I'm trying to think of what's next. And I think the listeners that are listening to this too are going to get a lot of value in trying to understand how we're thinking as business owners today. So what are you doing to prepare for the future? And what are you doing to kind of combat what's going on in the world today?
Yeah. So I drive a Tesla Model S, by the way, not a Cybertruck, because I agree they're pretty ugly.
They're pretty ugly.
Yeah.
Your car is good.
Not my style. Yeah. I love my car. Yeah, it's fun to drive, and I love not having to stop for gas or get oil changes. It's awesome. But anyway, I think we're living through probably one of the most fascinating times in history. The technology advances that we've experienced in our lifetime are insane, and it's kind of like mind-boggling to think about what's going to happen in the next 20 years. If think about. Dude. I remember not so long ago there was no iPhones. We were all using like flip phones and the little keyboards, and now it's like in BlackBerry. Now there's iPhones, and I mean, how many 15 generations of iPhones, and if you just think about that alone, let alone all the other advances in technology, the Tesla, all the cars, all the other stuff that's happening, it's kind of like crazy to think like, where are we going to be in 10, 20 years? Like, it's going to be a whole different landscape again. But anyway, as far as like investments and economy stuff, I mean, I think, so first of all, I think there's opportunity everywhere, right?
Of course.
I think real estate, the landscape of real estate has changed and is changing as we speak. I think what was working 3-5 years ago is not working as well today and won't be working as well in the next few years. Like, I feel like a lot of things are changing. We were involved in real estate at a really great time. I was telling you this before the show. Like, when I got into real estate and I was learning from these guys, like, everybody was buying at the trustee sales. Like, that was the hot place to buy property. That was where all the deals were. And then the hedge funds started coming in and buying up all these, millions of homes. And it was like, it got way more competitive at the trustee sale, and then those kind of dried up. The auction sort of went dry. And then people pivoted to MLS, short sales. And that's where all the deals were. And then it was like, once that dried up, it went to like direct mail to homeowners. And then, and so it's just like, I think you have to be in business or investing, whatever you're doing, you have to be agile and you have to be able to recognize trends and you have to be able to pivot and like go with the flow of what's happening in the world or in the industry that you're in, because everything is constantly evolving and changing.
Dude,
right?
so much, and specifically pivot. So there's a book, I think Gary Keller wrote it, called Pivot, and I remember reading it back in maybe like 13 or 14 when I was just a residential agent, and it was like, hey, we're seeing a pivot at the time. And it's like this pivot book talks about the fact that you have to be agile, right? And that's the only way you're going to survive. One is you're going to have the ability to like learn something new and pivot how you're doing business to whatever's going on in the landscape. But it's also like, how do you be innovative at the same time? And so, like, do you think real estate's going to change in the fact of like blockchain, where it goes on to more of like a singular platform like that, where everything is more transparent, which will get rid of things like wholesaling and that type of real estate, right? I mean, do you think that's the way that it's going to go, or what do you feel?
I really don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if things go to blockchain at some point. I think that we're definitely going to see cryptocurrency as a more common type of currency, and I think it's going to happen sooner than we think.
For sure.
I'm not a big crypto guy. I own some Bitcoin, and I've done really, really well on it. I bought it when it was close to the bottom and have invested a little bit over time, but I don't have like a big crypto portfolio. I wish I would have bought a lot more, to be honest, but I think there's opportunity in cryptocurrency. I think that we're going to see it's going to become a lot more common. Because I think there's a lot of people that don't understand it. And
dude, me included.
I think as it becomes more mainstream, I think people, me too. I think as it becomes more understood and used, it's going to be more widespread, right?
Yeah.
But I think it depends on who we're speaking to. If we're talking to people that are already pretty advanced financially, or people that are just sort of starting out, like I think there's some basic like fundamentals that apply regardless of what you're doing or what you're trying to accomplish. I think like my thing when I got into real estate was I saw what my buddies were doing. They were buying houses and renting them out. And I was doing the math on like what they were paying versus what they were renting them for, and recognizing that if they could have those houses paid off or even, comfortably leveraged, where their payment was far below what the rents were. And I anticipated rents were going to go up over time, which they have significantly, way more than I ever thought they were going to. There's always going to be passive cash flow coming in, regardless of whether you're working or not. So that's kind of like everything that I do in business. I'm sort of like positioning it toward one outcome, which is
cash flow.
I want to build my passive income stream, my cash flow, as much as possible, right? And I have certain numbers that are goals, stepping stones, and then like the final number that I'm shooting for that's going to take a long time to get there. But like, 50 Cent once said, if you're not making money, and you're not really making money until you're making money while you sleep.
Right.
Right. And it's like, I always related with that because if I travel a lot, right? I've got a family, I've got kids now, and we travel all the time. And so I don't want to have to be here working in order to be generating income. I want to be able to be making money whether I'm in the office, on vacation, or sleeping. Whatever I'm doing, I have money coming in all the time. And so my first step was just to figure out how to make a lot of money, right? Just generate a lot of cash through active work and active income. And so I did that through wholesaling houses, flipping houses, wholetailing, like just buying and selling deals or contracts to generate profits.
Yep.
And really the step before that is to live below your means. And then this is key for anyone starting out. Don't increase your lifestyle or upgrade your lifestyle once you start making money, right? One thing I always tell people is way, way cooler to be rich than to look rich. But unfortunately, a lot of people, as soon as they get money, they upgrade their lifestyle to match that income. And then there's nothing left over to invest. And so one thing that I did really exceptionally well early on was I was living very inexpensively. And as soon as I started making more money, I didn't go out and buy a Rolex or a fancy car or buy a new house. I just kept my lifestyle exactly where it was. So I wasn't spending anymore, but I was making significantly more. And all that leftover money at the end of the month was being saved with the very clear intention of investing it. So then I'm just generating tons of cash through these active income, vehicles, and I'm investing those into appreciating cash flowing assets that I'm going to hold long term. And there's a compounding effect when you do that over many years, because the more passive income you have, again, as long as you're not increasing your lifestyle substantially or spending all that money, now you have more dry powder to invest. So the more money you make and the more passive income you make, you can buy more and more properties. And the more you buy, the more passive income. And so there's just like this compounding effect that's very powerful over
100%.
years. So that's what I've done over the years. And to get back to your question, like right now, I'm kind of looking for anyone who doesn't know me. I've when in 2022, when the market started to change and interest rates went up, the wholesale real estate market kind of slowed down. I was a little nervous about flipping. Buying rentals didn't really make sense. I'm pretty heavy in the lending space. I love buying passive income producing assets. Flipping, I will do if the deal makes sense, but managing construction is very, very difficult and time consuming. So I don't love doing it unless it really makes sense. Wholesaling, I absolutely love, but I think the landscape of wholesaling is changing. And I think it got a lot harder to make the same kind of money I was making. And frankly, I got my passive income is at a place now where like I have plenty of money coming in each month. So I just didn't want to work that hard. So I took this like 2-year sabbatical. The last year or two, I've just sort of been hanging out, doing deals here and there, but not actively marketing, not grinding like I was. I've been spending 80-90% of my time at home with my family and traveling, and then like 10-20% of my time working. And I'm just waiting to see like, what is the next big opportunity in real estate or another space? Where does it make sense where you can really invest your time and energy and capital and have a massive, return on that investment, right? Because I think right now in real estate, it's not that there aren't good deals out there, but it's harder to find the really, really good deals like we were doing the last however many years. Yep. We were making tons of money, and now it's like a lot harder to make that same kind of money.
You got to work a lot harder, that's
right?
For sure.
So
spend a lot more for it.
I'm sort of looking for like, what's that next opportunity, right?
I was actually looking at my KPIs last Wednesday with Precious and Ashton, and it's really unfortunate to say this, but my cost per deal is double what it used to be, what it was a year ago, which is crazy. Like if you think about it. Now, that's fine. There's still deals happening, and it's been a great year, but to your point, you got to work a hell of a lot harder for it.
Yeah. And I think part of that is because, just like in the beginning, everybody's buying at the trustee sales, but it was like kind of a relatively small group of these like investors.
Yeah.
And then it was like other people started getting wind that there were great deals at the auctions every single day, all day. So then all these other people started coming. And then the big institutions started getting wind of it. So when they started coming in, it was like they outbid everyone. And then all of a sudden those deals were really hard to get. The same thing I think happened in wholesaling where, when I started sending direct mail in probably 2015, and I'm not going to say I was the first person to send direct mail. Like I didn't invent direct mail marketing for wholesaling real estate, but there weren't that many people doing it. I remember actually telling some other people that are in real estate that I was going to send mail to try and get deals off market. And they were like, that's not going to work. And it's like laughable to think about that now, that back then someone told me that's not going to work. I made millions and millions of dollars off of direct mail alone,
Right.
So it's like I started sending direct mail and absolutely crushing it and growing. And then again, not that I like started it or other people followed me, but you have masterminds and you see what other people are doing. You try their methodology, and then there's all these people doing it. And anytime something is really successful, word spreads. The secret gets out. It's no longer like this like small group that knows about it. Like everybody starts to know. It becomes common knowledge. You have, of course, people making YouTube videos and teaching people how to wholesale real estate with no money down. You have gurus charging money to like coach people, whether they've done it themselves or not. But like all of a sudden it becomes this very common strategy that everyone wants to do because they think you can get rich quick. And like there's so much competition in wholesale right now. And I think over the last several years, like when I started, I would meet with a homeowner and they would say, I've only gotten contacted by realtors. Like this used to happen all the time. In 2016, 2017, even 2018. Like people say, I've never had someone actually market to me and offer to buy my house. I've only heard from realtors. You were the first one that actually offered to buy it, so I figured I'd meet with you. and I'd make him an offer and we'd negotiate and I'd close a deal and sign a contract. Fast forward like 2019, 2021, I'm meeting with homeowners and they've literally got 10 postcards on their table. They're like, which one is yours?
Right.
And I'm like, it's like now I'm competing with all these other guys. And frankly, some of those guys don't know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
They're just making offers. They're out of state or they don't really understand how to even comp properties. They're just like throwing stuff at a wall to see what sticks and just locking up properties way too high, seeing if they can sell it. And if they can't, they're canceling on the seller or trying to renegotiate the price. Whereas like one thing that I'm proud to say, I think differentiated me from a lot of other wholesalers was that I do not cancel contracts. Like extremely rare for me to back out of a deal.
Yep.
Extremely rare and unlikely. When I make an offer to a homeowner, my intention might be to wholesale that property, but I'm making an offer that I am willing, able, and ready to stand behind. So I have the capital and the resources to close on it myself if I can't sell it. And so I lock it up and I might send it out. And if my buyer doesn't close or I can't sell it, I don't go back and renegotiate. I don't cancel the contract. I just close the deal and then I'm flipping it myself or I'm putting it on the MLS or I'm keeping it in my rental portfolio, but I'm following through on that agreement that I made with that seller. And it's unfortunate, I think, in wholesaling, that is not kind of like the standard of ethics that most people practice. A lot of guys renegotiate, they cancel contracts. It's really common. I don't like that because I feel like it's given the industry a bad name. It's given wholesalers and investors as a whole a bad name.
That's exactly what it's done.
And
I mean, it's tainted the whole and a lot of why there's regulation probably that's
100%,
coming in, right?
Yeah,
because
100%.
As a wholesaler, you don't have to be licensed. You don't have to have any sort of, you don't have to have. You could be anybody. You could make somebody the most bogus offer ever, and if they accept it, and you don't, and then you don't fulfill your side of the agreement, there's no repercussion for you.
Yeah,
which is terrible.
Some clause in the contract that lets you back out on the last day, and unfortunately, it's the sellers that suffer because not only now have you wasted their time and energy, and the title companies, and whoever else, but the sellers sometimes by that point, have moved to another location. They've put a deposit down on a rental property. They've committed to buying a different house. And now they were expecting to have this money in their bank account on a certain date. And now they find out, we have to start all over again.
Right.
So they're kind of like getting left high and dry. I think it's really common that happens. I think that's a big part of the reason there's more regulation that's been happening. And I think there's more regulation that's coming or it's going to be banned altogether. Like it's just a matter of time before they really clamp down on it because I do think it's gotten a little bit out of control. And that's part of the reason too that I've distanced myself from wholesaling in all honesty is like I've had people say to me like, you're a wholesaler. And I'm like, no. Like I correct myself. I'm an investor.
Different.
Okay? I'm an investor and wholesaling has been one strategy that I've utilized over the years and I have loved doing it, but it's only one piece of my
of the puzzle.
my business model. Like I wholesale, I flip, I lend, I do seller finance notes, I buy and hold. I do all these different things. So I'm an authentic investor, and wholesaling is just like one strategy out of many. It's one exit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for guys that only wholesale and don't do it ethically, I think it's really disappointing. I think they've, in some ways it hurt the industry, and I think things are changing now. Yeah,
in a ton of ways. I think that's exactly what happened. Is it crushed the industry, and ultimately it's going to get rid of the industry or get rid of this side of it.
Yeah.
Right. So all of the success that you've had and the ability that the ability that you had to generate a living for yourself, what does that mean? Right? Like people get into earlier we were talking about like once you hit your passive income of your monthly nut in order that you have to spend every month to live and you don't need to go make any more money, it's all coming in passively and you don't have to go to work anymore. Like what do you do with it? What does that matter for you? Why would somebody what does that effect does it have in your life? Or what effect did building the business that you built have? And, how are you enjoying the fruits of your labor, so to speak?
Yeah. It's a good question. And it's like, there's a couple answers bounced around. The first thing I think is, the only logical next thing to do when you hit your passive income goal is to now set a new goal and double it, right? Like, guys, we're failures until we hit the higher mark. No, so I say that facetiously, but it's funny. I think it's human nature when we achieve something to automatically, especially guys like us who are like, I'm a hustler.
Yep.
Like, I'm never satisfied completely. You know what I mean? Like, I'm really content with my life. It's awesome. And I'm proud of where I'm at and what I've accomplished. But I'm never totally satisfied. Every time I achieve a goal, it's just kind of automatic to like set a new goal and push that goalpost out. And like, what's the next big thing I can accomplish? And I think there's pros and cons to that.
Definitely pros and cons to that, for sure.
There's the thing that's great about it, you know, I think is that we're always striving to do more, achieve more, and be more. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think there's like this thing about, you know, people say like money doesn't buy happiness. And I would argue that money buys jet skis, and it's really hard to look unhappy on a jet ski. And if you've heard that, that's a Daniel Tosh joke. But I don't actually think money buys happiness. What I've experienced personally from hitting a certain amount of wealth, a certain amount of passive income, is I got to this place where I had a passive income goal that was far more than what my monthly nut is, right? And I wanted to just have complete financial freedom. Once I hit that goal, it was like I can retire, or if I'm really loving what I'm doing, I'll keep doing it. Like, but I can just do whatever I want at that point, right? And I hit this number, and it actually happened right around the time that interest rates changed and the market slowed down, and I was kind of burnt out. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to take this sabbatical and just kind of like live differently for a little bit. I'm just going to slow things down, be more present at home with my family, travel more. And well, I travel a lot all the time, but it's a whole different topic. But I just want to be like, I want to chill out a bit. And I started getting bored and restless and feeling like, I should be achieving something. Some days I love it. Some days I'm like, man, I'm going to read a book, and I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to hang out with my kids. And then other days I'm like, I should be like, I'm a hunter. I need to hunt something. I need like something to do. I need to be achieving
stimulation.
I need to be growing. Yeah. And I think for me, there's kind of two sides of that. I think there's value in continually striving to be more and do more. Aside from the financial rewards, right? Which are great. Like, I'm not going to lie. I was broke. I was homeless at one point. Having money and being financially free is a wonderful, wonderful thing. I've been rich and I've been poor, and rich is way, way better.
Way better.
Way better, no question. But I do know people who are very wealthy and miserable, and I have experienced that myself. I've been in a place where I was doing really well financially, and I would do another deal, make $50K in a day, and it like didn't do anything for me. It's just like more dollars in my bank account, but it didn't change anything about my life. And so there's kind of this balance. I realized that one of the blessings of becoming really successful financially, okay, is that it's not the money itself that is the reward. While that is something that benefits my life and is incredible to have, it's who you become in the process of going through that journey. Because doing anything where you have to create a lot of value and overcome obstacles and figure things out and strategize and solve problems and create value, and you know, there's times in an entrepreneur's journey where you want to bash your head against the wall and say like, what am I doing this for? I don't need the stress or the money. Like, this is like crazy. And then the next day you get up and you calm down and you go to work and you just continue down that path. And learning how to overcome the discomfort of those moments or the complexities of building a business or achieving great things, you build, it's like a muscle. You build like this mental and emotional stamina to hardships and challenges and obstacles in life. And that becomes really something that's really rewarding, where like before you might have quit or crash and burn, and now you're able to like overcome all that and achieve something great.
And it also allows you, for the next time that happens, that you're not going to shut down. You're not going to say,
for sure,
I can't make it. It's just like, oh, okay, here's a little tough bump in the road. Not a problem. Been here before, right? Yep. I can get through this. Might be tough. It might be challenging. There might be adversity, whatever, but I can go on to I can move forward, right?
Yeah. It's one of my favorite things. I mean, you and I both cold plunge in the morning. I do it every morning when I wake up. And I never want to get in that thing, 38 degrees. I never want to get up and get in that cold water. Yep. I do it every single day. And part of it is, aside from the physical benefits, it's just the mental toughness muscle that I'm building by going, I don't want to do this, but I'm not going to negotiate with myself about what I do or don't want to do. I said do it, so go. And I get in and I sit through it and I get out and I go, okay, we got through that. And that like applies to all areas of life. So being able to have that mental toughness and overcome challenges is a really invaluable component of, character, I think. That being said, I also think there's this other side to success. I think hitting the number allowed me to kind of like really control my own time more and not have to worry about money or not have to worry about doing another deal to pay bills or any of that, right? I'm really comfortable financially, which is a blessing and a curse in some ways. It's a blessing because obviously I'm financially secure and I don't have to stress about money. It's a curse because when your back's against the wall and you got to figure stuff out and hustle to make money, there's more drive. When you're
forced to grow.
When you're really comfortable, it's a lot easier to say, I don't feel like working today. I'm just gonna take it easy.
That's right.
So again, I'm sort of like looking for that next right opportunity that I get real excited about. That really feels like it's worth my time and can have a major impact. But I think for me at this point in my life, there's a couple of things that come to mind. I mean, one is just that at this time in my life, I want to be more present with my kids. You and I both travel a ton. I've been to 38 countries. I love traveling around the world. I know a lot of people who have made a lot of money, are real successful, and they don't do shit with it.
Which
and
drives
it's like
me crazy.
it's
what are you doing?
crazy. I'm like, dude, what are you doing with all this money? Like I get like you can buy a cool house. It's awesome. To me, like the experiences that we get to have are like the greatest thing
100%.
in life. So like traveling is literally my favorite thing to do in the world. I do it every chance I get. And being successful allows me to step away from the grind, to go and take trips that maybe some people aren't able to go experience. Like I want to do all these things and enjoy them and be present, take my family and friends. And to me, all the success doesn't make any sense if you're not enjoying the fruits of your labor and having those experiences along the way. And I think a lot of people say, I'll do it someday. But I learned a long time ago, I had a friend's mom get brain cancer and die just out of nowhere, She was super healthy. My dad got really sick at one point, and I just thought, man, you just never know. I get killed in a car accident tomorrow. I could get paralyzed in a snowboarding accident. And I would not be in that hospital bed thinking, I wish I would have worked more and made more money. I would be wishing I had taken the trip that I had been dreaming about, then putting off, And so I try and live my life in a way that's congruent with that, enjoying the experiences along the way, but also keeping the big picture in mind and continuing to put in the work necessary to continue to grow and evolve, right? And I'd say probably the biggest thing right now is I think once you get one of the biggest misconceptions about money on this topic is people think that if you're broke and you get money, you're going to be happy. That actually might be true. Being broke causes a lot of stress.
A lot of pain.
So if you're broke and then you come into money, you're going to have a much better life for sure. But once you have a certain amount of money, once you get past a certain threshold of income, passive or active, or a certain amount of wealth, this misconception is that having more money is going to make you incrementally more happy. And I have learned from experience that just is not, it's simply not true.
Dude, I think it's not true at all.
It's not true at all.
That's for sure.
And so, well, then what's the point of all the hard work and accomplishing more once you pass that threshold? And I think that there's just got to be a greater purpose to it all, So that's another thing that I'm kind of trying to incorporate into what I do going forward is, okay, yes, I want to continue to make money and be rewarded financially for my hard work and the value I'm creating. But I also want to figure out how can I impact the world or help other people or have a philanthropic, cause behind my next endeavor, whatever it is, right? So kind of leaving your mark on the world in that way, I think is a pretty cool thing that we get to do in business. And also just for the love of the game, it's business is a lot like a game and it's fun.
Dude, it's definitely
it's hard work, but it's fun,
What you said right there was kind of the rounded approach to what I was hoping you were going to say, which is controlling your time, right? There's really, that's the main thing that wealth or creating income or creating passive income or creating the not having to need to go to work anymore is because you get to control your time with your family, with your wife, to go experience different countries and experience the world, and then ultimately to give back, right? So you get to use that wealth that you've been able to create to go see all these experiences, have all the experiences in life with the people that you love, doing what it is, doing whatever you want, when you want, how you want, with whoever you want. It doesn't matter how much it costs, right? For the most part. And then at the end of the day, you get to give back in some sort of way, right? I mean, that's such an important piece. And that's why every big business book that I've always read for somebody that's made the trillions of dollars, right? The Andrew Carnegie people of the world, they always end with like, hey, we're going to give it all back, right? Because making the money is only part of it. And once you get it, there is a threshold where like it doesn't make you any happier the more that you get. The more toys that you buy, you don't get any happier doing that. You really don't.
Yeah. Or it's very short-lived. You know? I think like there's a difference between like contentment, fulfillment, and like happiness. Like happiness or, just like short term, I got a new car, I'm really excited about it. The novelty of that car wears off rather quickly.
100%.
You might enjoy driving that car and it might still feel good to have it for years to come, but like that's not true fulfillment, And that, I had a really cool experience in March. I went to India for a month, and I went solo. My family stayed here, and I did a 10-day silent retreat at this Buddhist monastery in the Himalayan mountains, same town that the Dalai Lama lives in. And so I spent my days there at the silent retreat, not speaking. I spent hours with Buddhist monks learning about Tibetan Buddhism and meditating. And, I went into that kind of like with a couple of questions that I wanted to find answers for and just reflect on while I was there. And by the way, it's kind of like, I didn't call it this when I did it, but it's essentially a dopamine detox, which people are talking about a lot now. I highly recommend that kind of thing because it was a really transformative experience for me. But, some of the questions that I wanted to answer was like what's missing from my life, right? Like I think we all, to some degree, have moments or periods of time where we're feeling like, even if we have a great life, like there's something more. I feel like there's something more to all of this. Like, what is it? What's missing from my life? What do I need, to really truly be fulfilled?
Do you feel like when you went in there, you had to have a certain questions you had to ask? I'm sure because in that, I love what you said. It's just, you're getting a detox from the craziness of the world that we all live in today with social media and with just how fast the world is going, right? But if you wouldn't have had, did you have specific goals that you went in when you went into that?
I had a list of questions that I wanted to reflect on and write about, because I didn't know what it was going to be like because I've never gone a day without speaking, let alone 10. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it was.
Dude,
it was
that
like,
would be hard.
It was
that would be.
I actually found it incredibly peaceful. I
sure.
enjoyed the silence, but I will say, that day one they took cell phones, laptops, locked them all in a safe. There's no TV. There's no communication with the outside world. There's no talk. I was in silence essentially for 10 days, with the exception of these periods where I was in kind of the monastery in a classroom setting with a Buddhist monk learning about Buddhism. And I went in with this list of questions that I wanted to reflect on and kind of answer for myself, right? And so like the big one was like, what's missing from my life? And I will tell you, with no distractions, no external stimulus to distract me, it was incredible to me how just a couple days of silence and meditation and reflection brought all these like profound answers to the surface. Like I had realizations that just sort of came during meditations or just while I was sitting and, looking at the wilderness and reflecting, like stuff just came to the surface, and I started having these sort of like realizations about my life that I've been kind of searching for a while. It was really, it was incredible to me how fast they came too. It was literally within a couple of days of being there. And the big thing that I took away was that I've been asking myself the wrong question all these years. I've been asking, what's missing? What do I need? What do I need? In other words, what do I need to add to my life?
What externally
to feel totally content and at peace with my life? And it was like, the thing that I realized was that's the wrong question. I don't need to add anything. The real question is, what do I need to subtract, right? Because I have an incredible life, right? I have an extraordinary life. And I've worked really hard to create my life in such a way that like I'm able to really enjoy it. But I think sometimes we get so caught up in the noise and the busyness and the, attachment to having more, right? That we think like that more of something, whatever it is, money or a relationship or bigger house or material things, like more of something is going to fill whatever hole we have inside of ourselves and make us feel content and fulfilled. And I realized like that's just not true. We're all perfectly capable of feeling totally content and at peace, like in our own reality at any given time. We just have to slow down enough and be present enough to just enjoy the here and now. And that was, for me, that was like profound. I like started thinking about my family and the life that I have. And I realized I really don't need to add anything. What I need to do is remove anything that doesn't serve me, right? Any negativity, any people that I feel like I don't fully connect with or respect or value, anything that is taking my time or energy or focus away from things that are truly important in my life. Remove those things, and what I'm left with is just like this awesome life that I've built, and I'm just free to enjoy it, right? And of course, we all have that emotional ebb and flow of day-to-day life, but
such a great realization, though, man. Like it really, really is. Everyone has always heard the term "less is more," and that's applicable here for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, so since you were able to go through that experience, right? When you came back, did you feel like things were different when you got back?
100%.
So like what specifically changed, or what were you able to change or remove from your life that helped you to, live a little bit more peaceful?
I mean, I'd say since I got back, I've had, a higher level of peace and clarity. I came back with sort of this new peace and clarity that I hadn't experienced before. And sort of like what I'm telling you about, taking this sabbatical and feeling like restless and like, what am I supposed to be doing? And I still have those days sometimes, right? But I'd say for the most part, I'm far more content just being present, being with my family, or doing whatever the day brings and like enjoying my life and who I am and who I get to be. You know what I mean? Like just the life that I've created. And that's been, I think, really liberating for me, instead of overthinking, like, what do I need? And there's a great book by Dan Sullivan called The Gap and the Gain that it talks about kind of this very subject. I think I'm one of those high achievers who for many years has always kind of like, regardless of what I've accomplished or where I'm at in my life, I'm looking at this distant point down the road of where I want to be, what my ideal life scenario is, or my ideal income or net worth or whatever it is, right? And I'm like thinking, I'm totally discounting what I've achieved thus far and where I'm at in my current situation because I'm not there. And I'm feeling
the goalpost just keeps moving.
I'm feeling like I'm coming up short and I'm a failure, or maybe it's not even that extreme. I just feel like I'm not where I want to be. And so I'm just feeling this discontent. And what the gap and the gain is about is measuring yourself against where you used to be, how far you've come, as opposed to what your ideal outcome is. So instead of measuring yourself by where you want to be and feeling like you're nowhere close, measuring yourself from where you came from and seeing you've experienced all this incredible growth, whether it's financial, emotional, spiritual, like all these ways that you've grown and achieved and done something meaningful. And that's, I think, a very easy way to just tap into gratitude and feel good about your life. And so that's kind of, I think, I relate that with this because I think I got some of that from this experience too, where I started to recognize like the key to being happy isn't necessarily just like some distant point in the future where I like make more money. Like I've made a ton of money, and in the past thought that when I got to this point, I would be totally fulfilled. And I got to this point, and aside from having more money, I didn't really feel any different than when I was back here. It was just like I just was richer and I had more free time. But so why would I think that doubling that would somehow make me feel better? Like it's going to be the same thing that happens there. So we have to enjoy being present in our day-to-day. And that doesn't mean we don't have goals or aspirations to achieve more. I still have those goals. Like that's still a great and challenging and wonderful part of life in this whole experience. But like allowing ourselves to be present and be content with what we've achieved and who we are in the here and now, I think is the most important thing.
Such a great realization. And I'm pretty sure the same guy referred that book to both of us around the same time. Because it was like, when you're trying to always chase the horizon will always keep moving away from you. You'll never actually get there, right? And it can get really easy to keep on chasing, right? Instead of looking back and saying, hey, I started way back there. Look how far I've come. Let me be grateful and have gratitude for how far I've come and let me enjoy it, right? Yeah. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
So, dude, I mean, you've gone from 2013 to drug addict to getting out of that to creating relationships that allowed you to get into not a partnership, but work for some guys that ultimately taught you the business, right? That took you through some different cycles that we went through in our world, anywhere from short sales to, or I guess from the buying at the auction into short sales, then the massive run up of wholesaling, then COVID changing, right? A bunch of success has led you to have some freedom to be able to travel the world and ultimately get you to a spot recently where you can really reflect and see what's important to you, allowed you to take a little sabbatical that you're still in today, that you're trying to still figure out what's the next meaningful thing for you. I mean, I think that you really have given a ton of information to all the guests out there and the listeners that are listening. Dude, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's really a lot.
Yeah.
If you had one more thing to give to people, something action they could take today, something they could leave here and say, okay, I can go take action on this right now, or I can do this in my life. I mean, what would that be?
I would say, there's a 1,000 answers to that question, right? It totally depends on people's specific situations or what they're trying to achieve or where they're at. But one thing that I think is universal that I think is overlooked a lot. I think a lot of times people look at, the return on an investment in terms of dollars, right? And so, for example, there's been many deals that I've contracted over the years that I have, wholesaled instead of flipping. It's just a simple example. Now, let's just say simple math. I could have made 100 to wholesale it. Or to flip it, right? To take it down, insure it, turn on utilities, like all that big checklist that gets triggered as soon as you close on something. And then you got to rehab it and put it on the market, wait for a buyer, and you sell it and you make $100K. It's a great deal. $100K is a lot of money. That's life-changing for a lot of people. But if I could wholesale it today and make 40 or 50, I wholesale it and I don't even think twice about it.
100%.
And I've had people on deals like that say, why would you sell that and make half as much? Why? Like, you could have made 100 and you only made 50. You're an idiot. And I'm like, oh, you don't get it. You're only thinking that in terms of dollars, right? That I could have made twice as much money if I had done this other strategy. But what I was focused on was my time. Now, to flip it, again, we just went through all that stuff you have to do. It takes a lot of time. I can wholesale 10, maybe 20, maybe 30 deals in the amount of time it takes me to flip one, 100%, right?
Yeah.
The amount of hours I have in a wholesale deal, it's like under a handful. Like, it's like a few hours. Sometimes I have an hour in a whole deal, make
right.
50 grand. To flip it, you have like literally 100 hours or
and
more.
Headache and soft
and tons of stress and tons of risk, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so for me, business is about not just creating the highest return on my money, on my investment, but the highest return on my time and energy, mitigating risk as much as possible, having the ability to analyze things through a lens of, I think people are too optimistic about deals sometimes. They look at it and they just look at the best case scenario and they think, oh, we can make this much money if everything goes well.
Which rarely does.
I got to tell you, I don't put much stock in the best case scenario because it rarely happens. If it does, that's just like the added benefit of doing the deal, right? It's like, yeah, it's the cherry on top.
Yeah.
But usually you fall somewhere between the best and worst case scenario. I look at more at the worst case scenario. So if I can make 100K on a deal and lose 10 in a worst case scenario, that's a bet I'm going to take, Worst case scenario, I lose 10. Best case, I make 100. You're probably going to end up making 50 or 60. You know what I mean? Like, I'll take that gamble. People will do deals where they can make 10 or 20, but if things go really bad, they'll lose 100. That's not a deal I want anything to do with.
I run from that. I would even cancel my buy on that.
Yeah. That's
to not do
those are very rich. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is learning how to evaluate things through kind of a different lens than just like, how much money am I going to make, right? Looking at the return on time, energy, stress, looking at the risk, and just sort of evaluating things that are going to create the best outcome for you. Because if you're more efficient with your time and your risk management, you're going to do far better than someone that's, spending tons of time, and in the long run, even though they make more on that one deal, they're making far less than the guy who's agile and can do a bunch of deals and make less and like makes way more overall.
For sure.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
So that's kind of, I think that's probably what I would leave people with.
It's a great thing to leave off on.
Yeah.
How do you value your time? I mean, that's where it comes down to, right? I mean, it's like, how do you value your time? What is your time worth, right? If you can go, like you said, go flip a house, put 30 hours into it or more, and all the headache and all the issues that come with flipping houses and make 100, or you could put an hour to 3 hours max and make 50 to not do anything, right?
And again, these things all change. Like wholesale, I don't know if anybody's making 50 or 100K a deal wholesaling anymore. It's like that market has changed. But I'm like right now looking at different opportunities that I want to be involved with that, again, are just bigger types of deals. Like I think the next part of my trajectory is probably not so much in wholesaling and flipping houses. I've been doing single family stuff for so long, and in my portfolio I own some multifamily and commercial stuff, but I'd love to be more involved with bigger deals. So instead of doing one house or a few houses or a few deals a month to make a certain amount of money, can I get into deals and start executing deals where I'm doing 1 or 2 deals a year and making the same amount of money as when I was doing 60 deals a year, right? Like bigger commercial stuff or development. I'm kind of looking at some of those options, just trying to be more efficient with my time and energy and like what has the highest upside potential, right? Where I can mitigate risk. I think approaching things in a very strategic, sophisticated way is underrated. A lot of people just kind of fly by the cuff and want to just like go out and do deals. But it's like, if you take a little time to strategize and, really analyze the opportunities and find the best use of your time, you're going to go far.
Dude, I agree with that 100%. And what we'll do is give it maybe 6 months and come back on.
Yeah.
Hear what you got.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I appreciate you being here.
Anytime, bro.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for having me.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us on today's episode of the Invest This podcast. I know you got at least one thing from this episode, so drop us a like and click the subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. If you have any questions, thoughts, or suggestions for future episodes, make sure to leave us a comment below. I love hearing from you.